A couple of years back, I can remember that my now wife was sitting on the couch and she was reading a newspaper. And the newspaper said a tragic accident, a plane crashed down in France. The pilot was a suicide, well, flyer, I guess. And he crashed the plane, including all of the passengers aboard this plane. Well, that was a horrible news. Many people died because of this, well, action. Many people felt bad because of this. And yet, nobody knew about the same accident happening a couple of years before in Africa, for instance. So the focus was directed to this specific instance, which was horrible, but it was excluding everything else. And this exclusion meant that those people who were affected by the first accident were basically neglected. Those people who were focused only on the published accident were focused on the tragedy. And those people who were keenly following the information and the news outlets, they were basically always focused on the problem at hand. There is a very interesting information there regarding airplanes. So airplanes are basically a very safe mode of travel because the death of airplanes was reduced itself by a manifold within the 21st century. When flight first started in 1921, there were a lot more accidents. By now, it's comparatively one of the safest modes of travel, and it's so easy to go with an airplane without having any issues. So, in numbers, to be specific, to be factful, and to understand what complexity means and how refocusing us basically also brings us in a state where we might lose our own agency about our feelings. In 1921, in the 1920s, there were 2,100 accidents with airplanes. Comparatively, it's just one right now. So there was a lot of reduction in accidents. And still, when there is one accident, this is being published and really you hear about it everywhere and you are focused on the tragedy of it. And you miss the point that actually 2,099 less accidents a year happen since 100 years ago. Have a look on how our brain is reacting on exactly these kind of attention-grabbing news, attention-grabbing ads, attention-grabbing anything communication that focuses our attention on a specific topic, specific issue, or specific problem. And that's the key, the focus. Our focus is probably our most valuable resource. It's more valuable than money. It's more valuable than our time spent in job. It's more valuable than pretty much anything that we have because our focus defines where we put our love in. That can also be relationships and family and all these kind of things. Our focus defines how we do our work, how effective, how efficient we do our work. And our focus helps us basically going through our life. In a complex environment that we're all living in, the focus is that creates even more complexity because our brain struggles to comprehend all of these complexities. So all the attention-grabbing communications try to focus on a specific small part of a maybe bigger, larger subject. When it comes down, for instance, to climate crisis, there are many different kind of opinions what we should do as a community, as a humanity, or as an individual. And all those solutions either include specific areas or exclude other solutions. So obviously there is opinionation in there, and an opinion can be correct or can be not correct. Important is to understand that these are opinions. Factfulness helps us to distinguish between what is there, what is actual a fact, what is a description of complexity, and distinguish this from an opinion where some person says, okay, so this fact I like, this fact I don't like. And the same goes true for how our focus is directed by those attention-grabbing communications. We need to understand what we focus on. Maybe a more current example or more maybe tactile example is Tesla. Who of you heard about Tesla? Small company, US. Elon Musk, some random guy. Sometimes he says something on Twitter and suddenly things happen in the world. And it's like small little puppies start becoming very, very valuable. So a very interesting guy. He introduced his wish to transform humanity, and he's doing several big projects. PayPal was his first one that was very big, but there were also other projects, like for instance Tesla or SpaceX, and the Hyperloop. Maybe just throwing out a couple of projects that he had. Tesla in particular is very interesting because the electric cars that he's marketing there are under a lot of scrutiny when it comes down to the technology that is used there. The cars are supposed to drive by themselves without any human intervention. That's the idea. Execution is not as far as that. However, when there is one Tesla accident right now, you can bet that all news are full with this. Full, like really full. And here we actually run into a very typical bias and a biological process in our brain that helps us understand complexity as fast as possible. However, our brain is not wired to understand global news in a local scheme, because the local understanding of our brain, where our instincts work, where our perception work, those senses are focused on an area that we in some way can oversee, like literally oversee. When you move out of this local area and onto a national scale or a continental, even a global scale, our senses are not able to comprehend the numbers anymore. I don't know how it's for you, but when I hear there are 100,073 people that are doing XYZ, then this is for me just a lot of people are doing XYZ. And well, 100,000 is not a big number in terms of what the newspaper is telling us. And that's a good thing. Like understanding that our senses are wired and focused on a local environment means that whenever we are confronted by information from the outside, be it from news, be it from friends, be it from family, from work, whatever, this information that is outside our own perception will be quite likely misinterpreted. And this is where we need to understand that our bias in our brain, the availability bias, is making a huge impact on our understanding of the world. What does availability bias means? Anybody already knows the word? Very good. Very good. So availability is basically being available or being not available. And the availability bias focuses specifically on the point where information is abundantly available regarding one specific topic. So in my introduction for you so far, I basically talked about tragedies and catastrophes and how our perception is being limited when focused on those tragedies and catastrophes. What I was not talking about are all the things that became better within the last X years. So the information that I provided to you, the available information, created a frame around what we are talking. And this frame is limiting what we are talking about. And because of this frame being moved by me, of course, I can adjust it to certain areas and exclude other areas, for instance. Where I would like to talk about environment, I could basically put the frame here. Or whether I would like to really exclude environment, I could say, no, it's not important. Let's talk about something, some white space, which is not so important. Availability bias means in this case, when we hear 10,000 articles about Tesla burning up because the battery caught fire, then what we don't hear is that this is a very unlikely number in terms of the statistical approach, how many explosions are possible. When we hear everything is getting more expensive, is what we don't hear is that people are not getting more salary, for instance. When we hear from our children they are being bullied at school, we don't hear what they learn at school or what they are happy about when experiencing school. So the availability bias is seriously limiting our awareness to what becomes available to us. So first step to become better with all kind of resource stealing moments is be aware what you focus on, because the focus determines whether this gives resources to us or it steals resources from you. And when you realize there is something that steals resources from us, then make a conscious effort to look at what you are currently not looking at yet. So first thing, become aware what you focus on and extend your focus consciously and deliberately in order to become aware of the complexity that you are being part of.